You know, almost 2 years ago, back when I was in the private sector, I wrote an opinion piece for the Vancouver Sun that talked about how we have to radically change directions to deal with the plight of the mentally ill in British Columbia. And I talked about how it needs to go beyond politics because all of us political parties, BC Liberals, NDP, all the way back to Social Credit, deserve some share of the blame for the situation we find ourselves in. But what I talked about was the fact that when the decision was made back in the 1980s under the Social Credit government to close down the mental institutions, as they called them back then, whether it was Tronquil and Kamloops, or Essendale, or Riverview in the Lower Mainland, the idea was that those folks would then get supports they would need to be able to live and do well in the communities. Well, let's be honest, the supports were never properly there. And instead we now have a situation where so many folks are out in communities being exploited and abused without the kind of proper care and supports that they need and they deserve. And just remember that every time you see someone out there, maybe shouting to no one in particular or behaving in a manner that might seem really inappropriate or what have you, it's somebody's son or daughter or sibling or parent. And that's why we have an obligation to do better. And that's why I've called and have been calling for almost 2 years now to open up a modernized form of Riverview, where we take the mentally ill off of the streets involuntarily if necessary, to put them in proper care, 24/7 care with proper psychiatric and medical supports. And if we do that, we'll start to eliminate some of the chaos that we're seeing in streets and neighborhoods throughout British Columbia. Now, the current approach by this government, the NDP government, under the leadership of David Eby, has been to buy hotels and motels and warehouse the mentally ill along with the severely addicted and hope that somehow that's going to create a magic solution. Well, it hasn't. And we've seen that failure evidenced in every community throughout the province, where the social disorder and chaos has spread out into the surrounding neighborhoods, much to the chagrin of neighbors and, unfortunately, to the disadvantage of the very people that we're supposed to be helping. So Kevin Falcon and the BC Liberal government will take a totally different approach. We are going to make sure we invest in proper recovery facilities for a lot of these folks. Make sure that we have the kind of mental health facilities that will look after those with severe mental health issues, and make sure we have the kind of outpatient supports that we need for those that are just going through a difficult period in their life, maybe suffering from some depression, maybe having some issues of anxiety that can be dealt with through, intermittent supports that are there in the community. But we have to do things differently, and we will. And while I'm pleased to hear that David Eby recently is talking about some of these ideas and saying that he's going to do some of these things, I want you to know I remain a skeptic until I see the actual delivery, because we have to do more than talk. We owe it to these folks to do a lot better than make phony or empty promises. We need results. And a Kevin Falcon-led BC Liberal government is going to make sure that we get results. Thank you.